Let's
This
start.
conference
In the
will
last
now be recorded.
okay. Okay, dear students, the last class we were discussing about chronic bronchitis. Let us recapitulate what I have discussed in actually COPD. COPD, I told you, is a broad term. So broad term, some people call it is an umbrella term. Umbrella term is comprising both chronic bronchitis and emphysema. I told you how to differentiate both chronic bronchitis and emphysema. How will you differentiate what is chronic bronchitis? Chronic bronchitis, actually, clinical definition is given. Clinically, actually, you can differentiate that. What that definition is? The definition is cough is sputum production for more number of days for 2 consecutive years. 2 consecutive years means that is in 2018 and 2019. The patient complains of cough with more sputum production for about more days in 3 months. 3 months in 2 consecutive years. That is chronic bronchitis. That's actually clinical definition. But emphysema, more or less, you can do it. A morphological also you can do it. Emphysema is distension of air spaces. Distension of terminal air spaces. Emphysema. Now the walls of the air spaces. The patient develops emphysema. The umbrella term. Pathophysiology is very, very important. Differentiate between chronic bronchitis and emphysema. What is the pathophysiology in chronic bronchitis? What is the pathophysiology in emphysema? In chronic bronchitis, the conducting zone of the respiratory system is involved. Conducting zone up to terminal bronchioles, right from the major bronchiole to the terminal bronchiole. The conducting zone is involved. Whereas in emphysema, the respiratory zone. The respiratory zone is involved from the respiratory bronchioles. That is, respiratory zone is consisting of respiratory bronchioles, alveolar ducts, alveolar sacs, and alveoli. That is the respiratory zone. Or you can also say that is the airways. The airways are involved in case of chronic bronchitis. Whereas in emphysema, the air spaces that is alveoli and respiratory bronchioles, they are involved. Here airways, here air spaces, conducting zone, respiratory zone. So, of course, PTL actually the previous classes that is actually that smoking is the most common cause. About 80 to 85% of the cases they cause bronchitis. The same I also told you the same chronic bronchitis involving only up to the terminal bronchioles. And the emphysema respiratory. So the same individual, you may find the signs of chronic bronchitis and the signs of emphysema. The zones are different, but the etiology is the same. Etiology is the same. What etiology? The most common etiology fact is smoking, and that's about 15%. Of course, the pollutants, and then industrial gases, and then various gas fumes, and then industrial waste products. In the like in case of that, those people who are working in factories, and of course in some cases alpha antitrypsin deficiency, like of course United States is very common, but India of course is also there. So these are the common etiological factors of both for the bronchitis and emphysema. What are the findings? What is read index? Read index. Arika is there?
Yes, sir.
What is read index? DD index, I told you, take the cross section of the bronchi. Then you what you
Bronchus.
goblet cells, in between goblet cells will be there, basement membrane, lamina propria, and containing submucosal glands and the smooth muscle layer, of course. That is. So that is the cross section. So in the submucal, the lamina propria contains submucosal glands. Normally, because that is produced by the goblet cells and mucous gland that are present in the bronchial wall are necessary to lubricate the bronchial and actually to catch hold of the pollutants, whatever it is, the small particles there. But in case of chronic bronchitis, because of infection, more goblet glands, they will start producing mucus. They will start producing mucus, and that will occlude the bronchus or bronchial lumen. So the bronchial narrowing, that will be there. That is. So in chronic bronchitis, pathology is because of mucosal gland or layer proliferation and producing more mucus obstructing the bronchial lumen. Chronic bronchitis. What is feed index? Feed index means the thickness of the submucous layer or mucous gland usually will be less than 0.4, that is 40%. 40% of the bronchial wall. If it is more than 40%, hello? If it is more than 40%, more than 5, then DD. The second one is emphysema. Emphysema, I told you, because of the so many factors like nicotine and then oxidants and to damage to and cause actually a distant airspace will occur. So that is the because of that pathology. Hello. Yes. What's the problem? Are you able to hear me? Are you able to hear me? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Then somebody is speaking in between. So come on, let's go to classes pleural effusion. Of course, I'll talk in following headings: introduction, classification, pathogenesis, etiology, and all are there. So what is the pleural effusion? Pleural effusion is defined as the accumulation of the fluid. The accumulation of fluid in the pleural space, the space between the parietal and the visceral pleura. Where is parietal pleura? Parietal pleura, it lies the thoracic wall. The visceral pleura, it is lining the lungs. So in between the parietal pleura and visceral pleura, there is pleura. Usually, this is some amount of fluid is already there. Some amount of fluid is already there. The pleural space is about normally here about 0.3 ml per kg body weight. Roughly, of course, it is about 0.13 to 3 ml per kg body weight will be there. And it contains about 10 to 20 ml. 10 to 20 ml of pleural fluid normally present in the pleural cavity. That is present for the lubrication. Lubrication, free movement of the free movement. When you take, it has to move. The lungs expand. When you expire, the lungs actually deflate. So for the free movement, the space is there. Pleural fluid is also there. So of course, here accumulated the pathogenesis is given here, but broadly is given due to altered hydrostatic and oncotic pressures, and I will later explain about it. So more definition he has given here. More definition there. What is pleural effusion means? Collection of pleural fluid. What is parapneumonic effusion? Parapneumonic effusion is pleural effusion.
Pneumonia is lung infection, sir. Parapneumonic infection is interstitial and pleural effusion.
Parapneumonic effusion is seen in bacterial pneumonia and bronchiectasis and lung abscess. But there is another term known as pneumonic effusion. Pneumonic means same, consistent with the pneumonia. Pneumonia along with pneumonia, that is pneumonic. In case of bacterial pneumonia only, some people actually differentiate like this: parapneumonic and pneumonic. Pneumonic effusion, the patient develops actually effusion in case of pneumonias, bacteria, pneumococcal pneumonias. Pneumococcal pneumonias, the patients develop effusion that is known as pneumonic, and of course the parapneumonic effusion is effusion because of bronchiectasis, lung abscess, and bacterial pneumonias also. This is there. Because I told you in some previous classes, because lungs are quite adherent, that is the visceral flora is quite adherent to the lungs. Of course, the parietal flora is there inside the thoracic wall cavity, but more or less, when there is a problem in pleural cavity, the lungs will get affected. When there is a problem in the lungs, like pneumonia, bronchiectasis, and lung abscess, the flora gets also involved. So the patient gets pneumonic effusion, the parapneumonic effusion, that is one. Another term is known as loculated effusion. The fluid sometimes is confined to the pleural space. Of course, when there are additions between the visceral and parietal flora, it appears as loculated pleural effusion. That actually you will think maybe some nodules, the pulmonary nodules, you may think in terms of pulmonary nodules. And there is another term known as phantom tumor of the lung. Phantom tumor of the lung, what do you call it? Phantom tumor, that is, or vanishing tumor of the lung, where the effusion collects in between where? The lung fissures. In between the lobes, when effusion collects, that is the fissures, that takes in the form of a ball, that you may think in terms of a lung carcinoma. So that is known as vanishing tumor of the lung. If you actually give diuretics for 3 or 4 days, that will disappear, that vanishes, the tumor vanishes. So that is vanishing tumor of the lung. Of course, there is another term known as pulmonic effusion. Of course, here it is given. This is pleural effusion. You know what it is? This is the fluid. Effusion means how do you say it's effusion? When the costophrenic angle is obliterated and cardiophrenic angle is obliterated, and the effusion that goes up. That is the clinical features. What actually the effusion more it takes higher up position in case of normally, of course, moderate side pleural effusion, that is highest in the axilla, lowest in the spine. Why does it occur? Why does it occur, Harika? Because the shadow of the pleural effusion appears high in the axilla, more in the axilla. That is highest in the axilla and lowest in the spine. When you percuss all 3 areas, anteriorly, posteriorly, and laterally, then the dullness will be more present in the axilla, because of the presence of the both layers, parietal flora and visceral area is there. Because of the capillary section, what happened? Because of the capillary section, what happened? The fluid rises more in the axilla giving a appearance that is known as, of course, Ellis Esker oil come to later on. That is Ellis Esker. So height of the fluid more in the axilla. This is more or less Ellis Esker. Ellis Esker. And concavity is towards the midline. That is paraneumotic effusion means, of course, the same effusion is there, but you will find here a pneumonic patch. A consolidation is here. Consolidation in the hair space. This is known as air bronchograms. But here in pleural effusion, actually, there are no air bronchograms. It is homogeneous opacity, complete homogeneous opacity. Here also, heterogeneous opacity is here, but you will find air bronchogram. That is pneumonic patches here, effusion is here. This is known as parapneumonic effusion. There is another term, this is laculated effusion. Of course, this is present along the thoracic wall. Thoracic wall, that laculation because of the adhesion present. The fourth one is subpulmonic effusion. The subpulmonic effusion means accumulation of fluid between the lung and the diaphragm, which gives the false impression of elevated hemidiaphragm. Elevated hemidiaphragm. Because the diaphragm is, of course, right side diaphragm will be here, but it is elevated. Diaphragm is there. It is because of the presence of subpulmonic effusion means lung is here, the pleural cavity is here. Here actually this is a cross section. But here also anteriorly also will be present. The pleural space and cavity will be present. So because of the accumulation of fluid here, in X-rays it is seen as if the elevated diaphragm. Yes, big as about, it contains about more than sometimes 1000 ml of fluid. 1000 ml of fluid. 1000 ml of fluid may be there. Submel infusion. So to know what is the subpulmonic, and then you have to take actually lateral film like this. You have to take a lateral film. If you take a lateral film here, then pleural effusion actually spreads like this. What is loculated effusion? It spreads along the thoracic wall. Then we'll come to know that effusion is there. But to cast a shadow in the X-ray, there should be minimum 300 ml of fluid should be there. There should be minimum 300 ml of fluid is there. Suppose if you are suspecting less fluid, less than 300 ml of fluid, then how to know? Then you must take a lateral film. You take a lateral film that actually that covers like this, thoracic wall. That is, but if it is there 300 ml of fluid, you can take X-ray, and the patient also may develop symptoms. Of course, I told you this paraneumotic effusion. I told you pneumonic effusion. I told you phantom tumor, vanishing tumor of the lung. I told you subpulmonic effusion. Of course, classification, because of the presence of the effusion classified based on the site. Suppose if it is present apical, then apical effusion. Interlobar, I told you that's a phantom tumor of the lung. Interlobar effusion is just like a tumor growth, rounded ball appearance, that is vanishing tumor. Just like more or less a rounded ball because of the accumulation of fluid in the interlobar area. Of course, subpulmonic, I just told you, mediastinal, of course, is there. Based on the mechanism and type of the fluid, it may be transudative. I will commit a little later on. Because of transudative fluid alteration in the heterostatic and oncotic pressures, exudative because of the pleural permeability. Based on mechanism and type of pleural fluid is, it may be pyogenic. First is there, is known as empyema or pyogenic effusion. If chyle is there, chylous effusion. It may be due to obstruction the thoracic duct or injury or chest injury like this, or hemothorax because the chest injury may be there, or iatrogenic, the patient may develop hemothorax. Pseudochylous, of course, more or less because of high cholesterol content or whatever it is, then Pseudocylus effusion will be there. Hydrothorax. Hydrothorax means just like it's just I want to tell at this juncture, hydrothorax is means in some cases like in heart failure, cirrhosis of liver, and then kidney problems or kidney failure, and all those conditions, pleural effusion will appear. That is on hydrothorax. Here, hydrothorax is more or less is only transudate. But whereas pleural effusion, what is pleural effusion? What is the difference between heterothorax and pleural effusion? Heterothorax, the pleura more or less is normal. Pleura more or less is normal. Because when I come to the pathogens, we'll come to know. It's passive. It's a transudate means it's a passive accumulation of fluid in the pleural cavity, where the pleura are more or less normal. Both the parietal and visceral pleura, they are more or less normal in case of congestive cardiac failure, cirrhosis. But whereas in case of pleural effusion, in case of exudate, and it is due to pulmonary tuberculosis, pneumonia, bronchiectasis, lung abscess, there the effusion is exudate, there it is some amount of inflammation. The pleura are not normal. Pleura are not normal. So hydrothorax and pleural effusion, you have to note the difference. The last one is urinothorax. Urinothorax is and the urine is present. And the urine is present in the thoracic cavity. That is, there is some problem, other problem actually we will go and discuss later on. That is urine. It smells urine and urine will be there. Coming to the pathogenesis. What is the pathogenesis? Pleural, some amount of pleural fluid is already always there. Already there. Like in case of normal, what happens? Normally, what happens in lower limb? Suppose edema of feet occurs. What is the mechanism? Somebody must tell.
Increased hydrostatic pressure.
Okay, very good. One is increased hydrostatic pressure.
Decreased
The second one is
oncotic pressure.
Decreased oncotic.
pressure. So that will be there continuously. That is occurring. That will be there. The both forces will be acting on each other. So increased hydrostatic pressure actually tries to push interstitial compartment. Interstitial compartment normally what happens? It tries to push water or fluid in the interstitial compartment. The decrease oncotic pressure usually maintained with the albumin that is present there. That will try to push fluid from the interstitial compartment to the intravascular compartment. That is the force. Both forces will be acting continuously throughout the day 24/7. The same thing more or less occurs in case of lungs also. Lungs also, we know that actually the parietal pleura is there, visceral pleura is there. Parietal pleura is there, visceral pleura is there. Parietal pleura supplied by the systemic arterioles, systemic vessels. The visceral pleura is from the pulmonary vessels, pulmonary arteries. So both circulations will be there. So what normally I told you that is there about 8 to 20 ml, 8 to 20 ml fluid will be there in the pleural cavity. So that is present always. Of course, some amount of fluid should be there. So, but what happens in pleural effusion? Pleural effusion, because when the fluid is when the more accumulation of fluid is there, pleural cavity, pleural effusion occurs. When the accumulation of fluid there, more in the pleural, more than 20 ml, it may cause pleural effusion. That is one. And the second one is decreased transport of fluid from the pleural cavity. So what happens in pleural cavity? I told you just like in the body. Here, the fluid ties to the capillaries in both pulmonary here and their systemic there. They tries to push because of hydrostatic pressure, they push the fluid into the pleural cavity. In pleural cavity, in the parietal layer is lined by the lymphatics. The lymphatics they constantly drain. the pleural fluid from the pleural cavity. So as a result, what happens? The pleural fluid above is maintained roughly around 20 ml, roughly around 10 to 20 ml pleural cavity because of the continued action. One is trying to push fluid from the capillaries to the pleural cavity, and on pleural cavity continuously it is drained by the lymphatics. So when there is a problem, in the capillaries, or when there is a problem in the lymphatics, then the pleural effusion will occur. And there is more production of fluid, less transport. Pleural effusion occurs, and there is less transport, more fluid also, the same thing occurs. That is pleural effusion occurs. So that is the pathogenesis. So what happens? One is intravascular permeability. And the second one is actually the low oncotic pressure. Because of the low oncotic pressure or intravascular permeability occurs because of the inflammation, like in case of pleuritis, in case of bacteria, that is inflammation, or it may be due to pulmonary tuberculosis, or it may be because of other bacteria, or other cases like in case of bronchiectasis, lung abscess. In all those conditions there, because of infection, there will be migration of the inflammatory cells like neutrophils, lymphocytes, eosinophils into the pleural space. Along with, of course, fluid will also enter. So that is one. So it may be due to one. Because of the infection. It may be due to some bacteria. It may be due to tuberculosis. It may be due to bacteria like lung abscess or bronchiectasis, or it may be due to so many other inflammatory mediators. Like in other conditions also, there will be there, like in rheumatoid arthritis, all those vaginal granulomatous, rheumatoid arthritis, and then so many conditions are which I am going to describe a little later. So because of the increased vascular permeability, the fluid accumulates in the pleural fluid. Of course, mediated by number of cytokines like IL-1, 6, and 8, the result the oxidative stage of pleural fluid. This progresses to the fibropurulent stage due to increased fluid accumulation, bacterial invasion across the damaged epithelium. So it may occur in the systemic side, or it may occur in the pulmonary capillary side. So that is one. The second one is, of course, here it is given. The second one is normal pleural life activities. The second one is the albumin that is present here. It try to push the fluid out. Like in case it may be present. One is when the albumin decreases, like in cases of cirrhosis of liver, or in cases of nephrotic syndrome. There actually the albumin what happens because of the low oncotic pressure, the fluid accumulates into the pleural cavity. That is one. And like in case of congestive cardiac failure, one is decreased osmotic pressure is given, decreased protein synthesis, liver disease, and protein loss. Actually, the fluid actually enters into the pleural cavity because of less oncotic pressure. The second one is increased hydrostatic pressure in case of congestive cardiac failure. Here it is given increased hydrostatic pressure, the venous outflow obstruction in case of congestive cardiac failure, the fluid leakage will occur. This is actually blood vessel. What you find is a blood vessel. This is the pleural cavity. So fluid leaks out because of the increased hydrostatic pressure, because of the congestive cardiac failure. There the fluid leaks out into the peritoneal cavity. This is the pleural cavity. This is actually here because the decreased colloid pressure also actually this fluid actually because of the decrease like this. And this is case of transudate. Of course, exudate is because of the inflammation, of the vasculature, inflammation of the vasculature, and increased vascular permeability because of the migration of the neutrophils, lymphocytes, and eosinophils. The migration of the fluid occurs into the pleural cavity. This is pleural cavity. Because fluid and protein leakage will be there into the pleural cavity will be there. Because the increase, of course, is the same exudate. So many causes are there. It may be because of the inflammation, causing vasodilation, of course, states so many causes. So what happens ultimately? The pleural fluid accumulates into the pleural cavity. So of course, here it is not given. Actually, the lymphatics also should be there. Lymphatics means it will be here. Lymphatic, this is a blood vessel actually, but actually this one side the blood vessels will be there. The fluid accumulates here into the pleural cavity, and actually the lymphatics will be there. The lymphatics will be there. They will be continuously draining the fluid. In the pleural cavity. So the lymphatics sometimes may be due to thoracic duct trauma may be there, or maybe due to some infection. So lymphatics also may get obstructed, or it may the infection may be obstructed in many conditions. They may be obstructed in case of suppose cancers, lung cancer, they may get obstructed. Leukemic deposits, metastasis, so many other conditions, the lymphatics may get obstructed. So as a result, what happens? The lymphatics cannot drain the pleural fluid that is accumulated in the pleural cavity. So that's why pleural effusion will occur. So one is what you have to remember is one is because of inflammation, infection, capillary permeability, more fluid production. Because of increased hydrostatic fatty pressure, more fluid accumulation. Because of the decreased oncotic pressure, more fluid accumulation. They are the causes of more accumulation of fluid into the pleural cavity. But it has to be transported continuously. It has to be transported by the lymphatic. When the lymphatic got obstructed because of various reasons, because of the infection, inflammation, tumor, injury, trauma, then the fluid gets accumulated there. So etiology, of course, etiology may be due to there are two types of pleural effusion. One is exudate, and the second one is transudate. What are the causes of exudative pleural effusion? Maybe due to infective, pneumonia, bronchitis, pancreatitis, lung tuberculosis, lung abscess, like that. Collagen vascular disease, it may be due to SLE, rheumatoid arthritis, neoplastic leukemias, lymphomas, viremia, drugs like bromocriptine, amiodarone, nitrocurantine, dantrolene, INH, PS, metoprolol, they are all cause pleural effusion. Amiodarone commonly is actually nitrocurantine, bromocriptine, and amiodarone. So they are all causing a pleural effusion. Post-radiation is also an important. Post-radiation, I told you, because of lymphatic obstruction, because of the damage to the lymphatics. It may be due to trauma, or it may be due to post-radiation, or it may be due to collagen vascularity, or it may be due to infection, or it may be due to trauma, direct trauma, or it may be due to thoracic duct involvement. So there, the transportation is impaired. So they will all cause the exudative pleural effusions. Translative, of course, will come little later on about what is translate, what is exudate. Translate may be to renal causes. In case of nephrotic syndrome, the cause is because of the low albumin, that is hypoalbuminemia. There, because of the low oncotic pressure, cardiac cause, congestive cardiac failure, I told the mechanism, because increased hydrostatic pressure. Hepatic failure, the same. Low albumin or low proteins, the patient develops low oncotic pressure. Food energy molecules is the same, low oncotic pressure. Hypothyroidism, of course, because of sometimes some people say it's cancer, but actually this is here. Of course, this I want to tell you there are two conditions. One is Meek syndrome. What is Meek syndrome? Meek syndrome.
Paramyxomatous. Paramyxomatous peritoneum.
Very good. Ovarian tumor, fibroma of the ovary, and then the floral fish, hydrothorax, and that is Meek syndrome. Right side, there will be right side floral fish. Second one is actually there is another term known as yellow nail syndrome. I told you in bronchiectasis, yellow nails will be there, bronchiectasis will be there, and patient will have pleural effusion. Bronchiectasis, pleural effusion, and yellow nails. That is also yellow nail syndrome, and then Meek syndrome. Ascites. Meek syndrome means the patient will have fibroma of the ovary, right side hydrothorax, and then ascites. I just forgot to tell you one mechanism on the pleural effusion. So here it is not given. Actually, I told you accumulation of fluid in the pleural cavity. Accumulation of the pleural cavity. That is one of course capillary permeate. All those things we discussed. There is another cause. In case of because of the pores that is present, the small pores that are present in the diaphragm, the ascitic fluid, some amount of ascitic fluid always there. Of course, in case of ascites, because of various causes. In case of ascites, because of various causes also, because of the presence of small pores in the diaphragm, the fluid enters into the pleural cavity. Of course, it has to be transferred by the liver. Of course, the multiplicity of causes. So I forgot about this. The pleural effusion also will present in case of ascites because of the presence of pores in the diaphragm. The fluid that is present in the abdominal cavity that enters into the pleural cavity. That's also one of the causes. So hydrothorax is actually this is Meek syndrome is right side pleural effusion. That is Meek syndrome. Of course, pyogenic causes are the lung abscess, septicemia, chest wall injuries, rupture of the esophagus, rupture of sophronic abscess, rupture of liver abscess, all are causes of pleural effusion. That is expirative pleural effusion actually causes. Chylus, trauma of the thoracic duct, because it may be one is trauma of the thoracic duct, the chyle will appear into the pleural cavity, it's not transported because of the lymphatic. Of course, tumor, mediastinal lymphoma, the lymphatics get damaged. And of course, tuberculosis, I told you it may be due to permeability of the capillaries. And of course, lymphatic obstruction is the cause of chylous fluid. Pneumothorax, chest wall injuries, bleeding disorders, leukemia, anticoagulants, and then pulmonary infarction. In case of pulmonary infarction, actually, the pleural, if the bilateral pleural effusion occurs. In case of pulmonary infarction, bilateral pleural effusion occurs. The causes of bilateral pleural effusion are one is actually congestive cardiac failure. One is actually congestive cardiac failure. And the second one is proteins, hypoproteinemia, anemia, hypoproteinemia, congestive cardiac failure, and then this pulmonary infarction. Both sides they may accumulate. But again, there are causes. Some causes are there, right side pleural effusion. Some are there for the left side pleural effusion. That will come to here later. Of course, pseudocalus, rheumatoid pleuritis, tuberculosis paragon is like lung fluid infection. That is a pseudocalus effusion. Of course, paragon is asternami, the hemorrhagic may be there. Hydrothorax, of course, congestive cardiac failure, hepatic renal failure. So clinical presentation, it may be due to right side. Sometimes it may be present on the right side, sometimes left side. So what are the causes right side? What are the causes left side? The right side pleural effusion, usually it is due to hydrothorax. Hydrothorax in case of congestive cardiac failure. Hydrothorax. Of course, in bilateral effusion, I told you actually mostly in pulmonary tuberculosis, it may be present both on the right side and left side. So that is one. So right side pleural effusion, one is hydrothorax because of the ascites or congestive cardiac failure, nephrotic syndrome, whatever it is. That is the right side. Of course, pulmonary tuberculosis will be there. And mostly all cases, mostly it occurs on the right side. That is in case of bronchitis, lung abscess, or so what are the causes of left-sided pleural effusion? What are the causes of left-sided pleural effusion? One of you.
Cardiac failure.
Very good, cardiac failure. What else? The structures that are present on the left side of the chest and left side of the abdomen. That is, what are they? One is pancreatitis. In case of pancreatitis, in case of heart, that is, in case of
SIDS syndrome, pancreatitis.
very good, pancreatitis. In case of actually pericarditis, pericardial inflammation, and then pancreatitis and esophagus, rupture of the esophagus, and sometimes thoracic duct involvement above the level of B5. And left side pleural effusion is actually sophrenic abscess. It may be there, and then rupture of the esophagus, pericarditis, and then pancreatitis, and then of course pulmonary tuberculosis, and of course in congestive cardiac failure. They are all causes of the left-sided pleural effusion. Very, very common. Of course, right side very common is first is congestive cardiac failure, of course, kidney failure, cirrhosis of liver, and then all those conditions. The clinical presentation. What are the symptoms and signs of clinical presentation? The patient may present with dyspnea, difficulty in breathing. Sometimes the patient may present initially with actually, in case of bacterial, that is pneumonitis, the patient will have chest pain may be there. The first few days the patient may present with chest pain. What is the characteristic in case of chest? I told you that it will be stabbing. Stabbing and lancinating or cutting type of pain, which is catchy. The patient catches his chest. So if you ask the patient to take inspiration, the patient is not able to take inspiration because of severe pain. The patient catches his chest. That is known as catchy. Just like cutting pain, as if his flesh is being cut with a knife, and it is catchy. That is feature of the respiratory pain. That is one big. It is because of the parietal flora involvement. In case of pleuritis, and like in case. So after the accumulation of fluid, the chest pain actually disappears. The chest pain actually disappears because of the flora. Both the flora they get separated. Because of the accumulation of the fluid. So initially the patient may have chest pain may be there. After accumulation of fluid, of course, if it is less than 300 ml of fluid, there may not be any symptoms. The patient may not be present with any symptoms like breathlessness. But after the accumulation of about 300 ml of fluid, 300 ml of fluid, the patient may present with breathlessness. It may present with dyspnea. That is one. Other symptoms, of course, if it is more, the collection of fluid maybe, if it is more, of course, it is fine and the take care when it. But initially, the patient may present with breathlessness may be there, fever may be there, chest pain may be there. But when you examine the patient, what are the signs? Inspection, what do you find? If it is more accumulation, the take care may be shifted to the same side or opposite side. The take care shifted to the same side or opposite side.
Same side.
Opposite side.
Very good. Opposite side. Because what are the conditions the patient, the take care shifts to the opposite side? One is pleural effusion. The second one is pneumothorax. Same side, when is pulled, it pulled the take care to the same side. That is in case of fibrosis and collapse. Both the cases that is take care is pulled to the same side because of the accumulation of air and because of the accumulation of the fluid, the take care is shifted to the opposite side. The two collapse and fibrosis and then pleural effusion. What are the conditions where you find the take care in the midline? What are the conditions? One is
Bilateral diseases.
very good, bilateral pleural effusion, or it is present in pneumonia, bronchiectasis, bronchial asthma, COPD or emphysema, interstitial. That is all these conditions that take care will be in the midline only. Midline. That is in case of chronic bronchitis, it will be in the midline, emphysema, and the pneumonia, bronchiectasis, bronchial asthma, take care in midline. But that will be shifting either same side, opposition, other conditions. Like the four conditions. Suppose take a deviation into that, we must think of these four conditions. That is one. And then if actually in some cases, if there is more fluid accumulation, there will be intercostal bulging may be there. Intercostal bulging also may be there. That is inspection. The case of palpation, of course, take care shifted to the opposite side. And then there will be pleural, that is friction fluid, what is it? Vocal fremitus. Vocal fremitus will be reduced in case of actually palpation. And the movements of the chest are restricted. The movements of the chest are restricted, decreased. And the third is in percussion, what is the important sign?
Dull note.
You must say stony dull note. You must say stony dull note because of the accumulation of fluid in the pleural cavity, because the resistance that is offered by the fluid, you will get a stony dull note. You must say in case of pleural effusion, you must always say stony dull note because dull note may be present in case of pneumonias. Dull note may be present in cases of pleural tumors. There, it may be dull. But what is stony dull? What is the difference between dull and stony dull? Why there is separate term is coined? Your name is Harika. Why it is stony dull? Somebody must explain. Hello? Hello? Harika. Somebody must explain why it is known as stony dull. Stony dull. Why it is known as stony dull? Stony dull means as if you are percussing over stone. As if you are percussing over stone. So if you repeatedly percuss, over the pleural effusion, you will get pain. Percussing, you will get pain. That is known as. That's why it is known as stony dullness. Dullness means suppose a case of consolidation. You can percuss any number of times. 20 times you can percuss, you don't feel anything. But over pleural effusion, if you percuss more than about 5-6 times, you will get pain. Your finger will ache with pain. That is known as you are percussing over a stone. That is known as stony dullness. For pleural effusion, you must always tell stony dullness. For pneumothorax, pyoothorax, pleural effusion, you must always use the term stony dullness. Of course, dullness, of course, that is for the pneumonia. That is percussion. But in case of auscultation, I have clinical features. And in case of auscultation, what do you hear? In case breath sounds. What are the breath sounds like? The breath sounds are diminished vesicular breath sounds. The breath sounds are diminished vesicular sounds because the lungs are surrounded by the fluid. The lungs are surrounded by the fluid. So that's why they are diminished vesicular breath sounds. The breath sounds may be faint or diminished vesicular breath sounds, or they may be absent, or they may be absent. And sometimes the adventitious sounds you may hear sometimes crackles. Like suppose if it is associated with syndemonic effusion or panpneumonic effusion, like you may hear crackles, along with the faint breath sounds or absent breath. Sometimes you may hear crackles, which is associated with the pneumonia like that. And then vocal resonance will be less. Of course, both it may be there only if it is not present pneumonia, that it may be only vocal remedies and vocal resonance will be decreased. But sometimes above the level of fluorilation, they will ask you. Then I'll stop here at the clinical feature. Above the level of pleural effusion, sometimes you may hear bronchial breathing. Bronchial breathing. What type of bronchial breathing you will get? You may get tubular type of breathing. Like in case of consolidation, in case of pneumonic consolidation, because of the partially that is collapsed, because of the pleural effusion, the lung will be collapsing. Because of the collapse with the patent bronchus, will get tubular type of pressure. Tubular type of pressure that you will hear above the level of pleural effusion. Because of the partial collapse of the lung, so you will hear above the level of pleural effusion, you will get bronchial breathing. And you may also hear echophony. Echophony means you cause the patient to say E to ASN, that is known as they say E to ASN and nasal quality. You ask the patient E say like the bleating of a goat, that change, the tone will change. That is known as egophony will be there. So bronchophony will be there, and then egophony will be there. So that is about the auscultation. And here I just want to tell one thing. One is, of course, there is one term known as Ellis-Esker. What is Ellis-Esker? Ellis-Esker. Are you able to hear me? Hello, students. Are there or left? Hello. You are there. You are able to hear me. What is Ellis-Esker, ma'am? Ellis-Esker.
Black eschar with surrounding edema.
Amma? చెప్పండి. In percussion, what you have to do is actually in case of pleural effusion, what you have to percuss all three areas. You have to percuss anteriorly, you have to percuss laterally, you have to percuss posteriorly, because all three will not be in the same line. So, which is the highest? I told you previously, In axilla, you will get the highest dullness. The dullness will be high in the case of axilla because of the capillary suction, whatever it is. The fluid will be actually present in the high position in case of pleural effusion because of suction, whatever it is. So that's why in axilla you will get you must actually mark all the three areas: anteriorly, laterally, posteriorly. If you mark all the three areas, it may assume more or less a shaped curve. That is known as Ellis, ELLIS. Ellis a shaped curve. So that is present in case of moderate size of pleural effusion. Moderate size pleural, you will get only above the level, above the accumulation of about more than 500 ml of fluid. Moderate size pleural effusion means about X-ray will show about 300 ml. Clinically, only if it is there roughly about 500 ml of fluid, then you can demonstrate signs. So Ellis score is just a little above the moderate, that is more than 500 ml of fluid. So if you percuss all the three areas, highest will be in axilla, lowest in the spine. That is Ellis score. That is S-shaped dullness. Where do you get straight line dullness? I'll stop here. Where do you get straight line dullness, ma'am? Straight line dullness ఎక్కడ ఉంటుంది? Suppose you are percussing, just because you have percuss all the three areas, anterior, lateral, posteriorly, you are getting straight line dullness. Where? Straight line dullness you will get in case of
Hydropneumothorax.
Hydropneumothorax.
ఏంటి పేరేం చెప్పు? వాట్స్ యువర్ నేమ్? పేరు చెప్పట్లేదు నువ్వు. హారిక నీ పేరు ఎవరు?
Yes, sir.
అమ్మా ఏం పేరు నీ పేరు? ఓకే. Hydropneumothorax. In Ellis score, that is in pleural effusion, you will get not straight line dullness. Here in case of hydropneumothorax, you will get straight line dullness. That is indicative of hydropneumothorax. Of course, when you discuss about it, I'll try to tell. But here, pleural effusion, what you should remember is you will get different levels dullness, different levels of dullness, because highest in the axilla, lowest in the spine, in between anterior will be there. So that you must remember. That is dullness. Of oscillation, I told you there will be crackles. If it is a cinnamonic effusion, you will find crackles. And of course, sometimes you must try to, as a finalist student, you must try to look for bronchial breathing. And of course, the other thing that is clinically important one is Ellis shaped curve. And of course, phantom tumor, of course, it will be there. Phantom and local diffusion only peripherally you may get it. Sometimes peripherally or loculated only that area, you may get dullness like that. The bronchial breathing, sometimes you may hear, but usually you will hear only diminished breath sounds. And only in that trachea is shifted to the opposite, where there sometimes there is accumulation of fluid more than about 1500 ml of fluid will accumulate. 1500 ml of fluid, trachea shifts to the opposite side. That will be there. Of course, the patient will be present breathless, and the accumulation of fluid is more than 300 ml of fluid. So that is about clinical features. I'll stop here. I'll continue in the next class about. I'll tell you about investigations and treatment. Any doubts? So you must remember, one is stony dull node, and the Ellis curve, and then tracheal shift, and then of course pathogenesis. Of course, it may be hydrothorax or it may both are different. That those things you must different. Pathophysiology is very, very important. Pathophysiology is very, very important. So these things you must remember. I'll continue in the next class. Thank you all. Thanks for the patient hearing. The, అయిపోయింది, టైం అయిపోయింది.